Unusual spaces.
Okay, one more time. Unusual spaces.
Unusual spaces.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our official launch party, chat and of unusual spaces from Hercinia Arts Collective.
Hello, everybody.
And
welcome.
We
to our
actually,
official launch party.
Natalie, if you're still hearing me,
Chat
can you
and
hear me there?
unusual spaces.
We were going to
From
play
Hercinia
our
Arts Collective.
intro for our land acknowledgement. Do you have that?
Natalie, if you're still hearing.
My name is Nadine Arpin. I am a two-spirit Red River Michif living in Sioux Lookout, northwestern Ontario. And it is my honor to have been asked by Hercinia Arts to deliver the land acknowledgement to begin this event. As we gather virtually, we would like to take a moment to acknowledge the land on which we live and create, and the enduring presence of Indigenous peoples in this area for time immemorial. Artists showcased in this virtual exhibition have gathered from homes from across Turtle Island. Hercinia Arts is thankful to call Toronto, where the trees meet the water, our home. This land is the traditional territory for many nations, including the Mississauga of the New Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now the home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit and Métis. As guests on this land, we are part of the Dish and the One Spoon Covenant, encompassing territory which stretches the Great Lakes to Quebec and Lake Simcoe into the United States. It is all our responsibility to ensure that this dish is never empty, that we take care of the land and the creatures that we share it with, and we do so with no knives at the table, keeping the peace. It is in this spirit that we gather, share, and create together. Miu Piku, Chimigwech, merci, and thank you. Merci, and thank you. Merci, and thank you. Merci, and thank you. Merci, and thank you.
Thank you, Nadine. That was beautiful, really beautiful. I can introduce my co-curator partner, Natalie Parkinson-Dupley, co-curator for Unusual Spaces and co-founder of Hercinia Arts Collective. My name is Diana Lopez Soto, co-curator of Unusual Spaces, multidisciplinary artist, director, producer, choreographer, and performing artist. One thing that Natalie will be starting also on our vision as curators, so I will start for her. Let's talk about why we are all here. Unusual Spaces is a virtual art party that now is an extended of the live art parties that Hercinia usually has. They have been doing it for 11 years. The purpose of the art parties has been always to provide a platform for artists to share new and experimental art, often with a focus on circus and interdisciplinary performance, and to stimulate and activate engagement among artists, peers, and audiences through a party-like atmosphere. This year's theme, Unusual Spaces, has brought together a diverse group of artists who examine the meaning of space. We are currently living in bodies and lives that carry layers of unpredictable, unknown, and unfamiliar challenges. Perhaps we understand these challenges from a deeper ancestral layer that speaks through our common histories. The connection, language, and understanding of space in this virtual era reveals the vulnerability and the fragility of our identity as a whole, giving us an opportunity to redefine our responsibility as artists. Today, we speak with our talented artists and share this conversation with the broader communities in hopes to dive deeper into their process and learn more about them all. We're going to begin with Tethered the Ghost. Hi guys, how are you doing? So, Tethered the Ghost is a newborn theater company in St. Catharines, Ontario, founded by Kayleen Valdez Scott. You guys can tell me if I'm not saying it right, and Mariel Ochoa. Their mission is to address the complexities of the Filipino-Canadian diaspora by putting on stage the narratives that their families and themselves live through. I'm going to ask you guys a couple questions, and then you guys can give us your answers. Could you describe a space that means something to you and why? How does your personal story, the spaces, the words, and the objects involved influenced your movement choices? Take it from here, guys.
Awesome. First of all, thank you so much. We're super glad to be here and we're super excited for this. So regarding your first question, a space that means is very meaningful to both of us and as Tethered the Ghost is a space called The Green, which is a studio from Suitcase and Point, which is a theater company in St. Catharines. And yeah, there's no other way to say it. That's where Tethered the Ghost was born. We spent a year-long residency with this company, and I can only describe the experience as something that's like we would be in there and it would be full belly laughters while we were developing our process and what essentially became the first project as Tethered the Ghost, which is still in development, but that's how we like to see our work, always in development. We started putting together a ritual of getting into the work. We sang together, we moved together, we really just played around. We tried a lot. We fucked up a lot. We messed around with our bodies and voices a lot, but that's also what we loved the most about it, and that all came about in that space. We messed around with our bodies and voices a lot,
Yeah,
but
I'll just
that's
add on
also
here. Hi everyone,
what
I'm
we loved the
Kaylin.
most about it, and that all
Yeah,
came
we
about in that
we
space.
love that space. That was very meaningful for us. It was also a very old building, so cracked paint everywhere, broken heater, pipes were always making noises. So the space itself was quite unusual and really gave us inspiration. It was the literal space where we got to work with our mentors for the first time. So Marcel Stewart, the Titsa Collective in Toronto. And it's really where we became a collective and found ourselves as individual artists.
Yeah, and to get onto the second question, how does our personal ones or people that we know have gone through, how that translates through the lens of the theme of whatever project we're working on. And specifically for this one, we talked a lot about assimilating yourself in a system or a space where you don't quite feel like you fit, but you try anyway. And then going through the opposite process of learning to decolonize your thought patterns, learning to put yourself away from that system, and try to basically rebuild yourself back up. And we think of this our piece helical as what's happening initially in our bodies when we come alone for the first time, maybe in a long time, maybe ever. And we really worked with like two bodies moving through space together, but how? And because movement and contact improv are like two of what we really want to highlight in all of our work. How the heck do we do that when we can't be in the same space or when we're socially distancing right now? How the heck do we do that when we can't be in the
And
same
I think
space
the
or
only
when
other
we're
thing to
socially
add is like for
distancing
the
right now?
words, we usually start with actually movement and song first, but for this project, because we had a theme, we kind of worked the opposite. Like we wrote the script first, which was all still very much rooted in our personal experience. It's hard for us not to root it in our personal experience. And our space really impacted our movement because, well, again, realistically, we chose spots that didn't have many people in proximity, and then also like ways that we could infiltrate our character Issa's mind, and where we could follow her familiar spaces spaces that the mind can infiltrate, which will make more sense when you watch the piece.
Yes, for sure. Thank you so much. I can relate to that. I definitely understand, and I'm very excited to hear more about your process. And this is very exciting. I enjoy your work a lot, and I can see the influence of your story as well as what you're talking about, the challenges of not being able to come together, as well as bringing together your words and that inside-outside space of that you work with. Challenges of not being able to come
Thank you.
together, as well as bringing together your words. Natalie, how are you doing over there? Are you able to talk still? No? Okay. So I guess the next it was we have Lourdes. Natalie, is that pronounced correctly, Lourdes? No.
There, Lords.
So I guess
Lords.
Okay.
LORDS, or multiple Jesuses sometimes.
Is that pronounced correctly, Lourdes? Lourdes.
Lords.
So I'm going to introduce Lourdes. Is a cosmic force, black and brown Afro-Indigenous blood artist, shapeshifter, and keeper of a slutty heart. They're a non-binary gender healing dream, 100% brujeria mixed with ancestral rock. So, Lourdes, could you describe a space that means something to you and why? And also, can you share with us how art moves through you and the power it has in your life? Could you describe a space that means something to you
I
and why?
I had been struggling with thinking of a physical space. I thought of too many all at once, and then at the same time, none of them seemed to actually fit like what I'm feeling right now. Maybe where I'm at, like mentally and emotionally and physically. Um, so I thought about dream space because I realized how much of my art practice is dreaming. It is because of dreaming, or I develop it through dreaming. And much of who I am and have come to understand myself and my place in the world and everything around me and how everything around me is alive is through dreaming. I I have been obsessed with lucid dreaming and astral projection since I was little. So it's been something that's been so consuming, and that an ability to blend in different kinds of perceptions of the world, right? Like the really inner ones that are happening when our eyes are closed and we're sleeping and we have no control over, but maybe we do. So I try to find that space that, like always, the space where things are ambiguous maybe, and where everything there's a little bit of something else, and those are, I guess that's the space that's really important and special to me, is dream space. And connecting to the second question, which is how does art move through my life, what power art has, and how it moves through me. I think about it as art for me is an elemental energy, is what keeps me alive as much as caring for my physical body does. I feel that art is for me something that makes me able to collapse time and space through and with my body, with nature, with everything that exists around me. And I'm able to make sense of the world through it, is my most basic language, I think. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and exactly. Actually, this is that was the basis of the question. Is that space is both substantial as well as metaphysical, and that's what you guys are all here because all of your work has been examining space not just as a sensatory even feeling. It's also mental. All of your what space means. I guess that's what's the most exciting part of this, and for me to hear it from you too, to understand how you also see space is fascinating. And thank you for sharing your process. The most exciting part of this.
Thank you so much.
Hear it from you too. Okay, Nancini. it's going to you. Nantini is a young recreational artist looking to explore as many art forms as possibly make it their living. They delved into acting, film, TV, aerial, circus arts, theater, visual arts, but have more extensive experience with music. Could you describe a space that means something to you and why? And can you speak about your interest in connection to out and inner space? And why eyeballs? And how does your music choices participate in the artwork?
Sure. So, to answer the first question, I kind of struggled with it as well, just to pick a space. But funnily enough, I was gonna say the shower, just because mentally it's just where I kind of digest my day or my thoughts and everything. So, yeah. But I also have like a corner in my house where my keyboard is, and that's kind of also where all my creativity kind of lets loose. And I'm translating any thoughts or feelings into music, even if it's through like happy accidents or mistakes. It's just kind of flowing out through there. And yeah, so I don't have anything like a special space, I guess, but it would be just in the confines of my house, just where I'm just myself and just with my thoughts. I'm in my head a lot. So yeah, to answer the other question, why the eyeball? So the time lapse painting was initially sort of done for Covisions, which was another virtual art show. Yeah, through Look Up Theater, and thank you, Ingo. And so I didn't think too much of it, but it was supposed to be a meaningful vision that, like an omnipresent being, that's seeing the world from like, bird's eye view or like from outer space. But I thought it related to unusual spaces because when I first heard of unusual spaces, I thought of how other people who are not familiar or are new to certain places or experiences or people, they may find something unusual or just, very new and unique or different. And that the colorful iris was supposed to represent the, the many different cultures that are around the globe, the many different personalities, sorry, or people. So yeah, and for some of us, we find other cultures maybe unusual because we're not used to it. We're not accustomed to what they're accustomed to. Um, so that's why the eyeball was there in the painting, and why the iris was colorful. I forgot the other question, but I think it was my music choices, right? Okay, so
Yeah, how does your music choices participate in the process? Yeah.
so my goal was to sort of create a track that was in sort of in the background of the painting. I wanted to stand on its own. Um, but I also wanted to sort of fit in with the painting as well. And my choices for the track, it's not like a typical, it doesn't really follow too much of a structure, but it is sort of layered the way the painting is. So there's layers added on. And I chose my South Indian Carnatic, South Indian or Carnatic music influence to put it in there because I, so for me, culture shock was something I experienced growing up. I know this is a bit of a random tidbit, but I found that other people may think that I was unusual because of where I come from or the way I do things or the way my family does things. So I was trying to make people experience the flip side of that. So how is it when someone experiences my culture through music? But I also incorporated like beats that are familiar to like I guess hip hop culture or whatnot. So it's going to be both unusual to both South Indian people, but also to other people who haven't heard South Indian music as well. That's my thought process with that one. people, but also
Very
to
interesting.
other people
Yes.
who haven't heard
Thank you,
some
Nandini,
music
for
before.
sharing
So
this. And
that's
yes, I can.
my thought
That's
process.
what it was beautiful to see. Both the poetic and the symbolic, as well as the so specific part of the painting, that it was inner and outer space, and that's what caught our attention for Natalie and I. We had a conversation about it and how it had that symbolic as well as a very specific meaning that was almost in the simplicity of it was also very deep. So it was very interesting for us to watch it too. Thank you. Okay, Megan Chang. You're here, right? Yes, I see you. Megan Chang is a Toronto-based digital media artist and founder of Ping Interactive Studio. She specializes in blending digital and physical installations that immerse audiences in interactive sound, light, and movement. Could you describe a space that means something to you and why? And what inspired you to create this little robot? And will it see more adventures in the future? Can you give us some insight into how your music influences your visual art?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. A space that is special to me, it actually is a fairly easy question for me to answer. I grew up having a cottage. We were lucky enough to have a cottage, and it was like the best place on earth. I got to swim and like jump on rocks and just experience freedom as a kid. And we sold it a long time ago, but it's still like I still hang on to it as just the best place ever. So that is a great space for me. So what inspired me to make this little robot who dances? It was somewhat of a random choice. I was basically trying to find two ideas that didn't go well together, and so I was thinking about um, kind of dance and ballet, and particularly I was inspired by someone named Louis Fuller, who was one of the pioneers of modern dance. And she kind of rejected ballet and came up with her own movements. And so I decided to combine that with a robot who would also reject his past and come up with new ways to move. And I think the robot has many more adventures to come. I think the idea can be developed, and I already like did a previous version of it, and it was very different. So I'm happy with kind of how it's evolved, and I will definitely keep working on the idea to see what happens with the same idea but different versions of it. And in terms of the music, which I think was the last question, I'm a classical violinist, so I kind of trained thinking about musical gesture. And honestly, like I sucked at it. Like I didn't understand how to portray a musical gesture until very recently. So when I actually make my visuals before I record music for them, and when I create these visuals, they react in real time to whatever music they hear. So I kind of have to think beforehand about um, kind of how these visuals are mapped to sound. So how, let's say, like a rising melody in the musical gesture would be portrayed visually. So it's something that I have to think about beforehand, and I'm still working on it. But definitely, like the two, like both music and the visual content, kind of they're very related to each other, and it forces me to think about both at the same time. Yeah, that was a big ramble on, but I think I answered all the questions.
Yeah, you did. Yes. And actually now, after sharing one of your favorite spaces, I can see why or how the robot also relates into those adventures. It's a very playful little creature, and and the visuals of the landscapes are pretty gorgeous landscapes. I enjoy that too. Thank you. So I hope to see more of the adventures for sure. Okay, Angola. Angola is the founder of artistic director of Look Up Theater, circus and theater company formed in 2009. Her artistic form is the storytelling through contemporary circus arts and theater. Angola, could you describe a space that means something to you and why? And can you share more about your grandfather's interview and how this site-specific, well, this specific sound recording informed your idea? What was it like to hang from the material attached to your hair?
Yeah, thanks. First of all, thank you for having me. Thank you to Hercinia Arts for always having me in my weird art ideas. It's just, I think it's been super important for Ontario circus community to grow, to be able to have a space to express ourselves, because a lot of our work is corporate and blah. Second of all, because we're public here and I don't know who's watching, just want to, for anyone who's visually impaired, I'm a white person, I have long brown hair, and I'm wearing black glasses. A space. Well, 4 months out of the year, my family and I live in a forest, and that's my, I would say, my special space. And what was it about the space that we were?
Just to describe a space that means something to you, and why does it mean something to you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So the forest is it's very quiet, and it's a place that we can connect to nature, and there's lots of trees like the one in my piece. And well, yeah, you guys can see it in the piece, and then you'll understand why it's so special. Yeah, so the piece, the sound, the audio clip at the start of my piece is my grandfather, and it's taken from a CBC interview that was done in early 2000, because he was a mail carrier for 60 years. So when he retired, CBC Radio came to where I grew up, and did a radio documentary on him and in his different years. Like, he started with horse and buggy because there wasn't cars then, and he delivered the mail through horse and buggy. And it's just, the interview itself is like really explains how simple his life was, in the sense of like, he was the only one for a long time that would go to different people's houses. So if they ran out of something like yeast or flour, he would deliver it to them. He wasn't supposed to. He was only working for the post. But because it was such a small community, everybody took care of each other. So I guess, like, I chose that because the piece itself is called Descendant. It's about me exploring my ancestral past, and I do that by tying my hair to a deconstructed rope. And this project has been workshopped in a couple different ways. So this is the first time that I rigged the rope in a tree. And so the idea is like that I'm exploring this past. I did a DNA test, and so I have like more information on my ancestry. And so in it, I'm, exploring that through the rope, and in the idea that our DNA is living in our hair, and it's like the rope itself becomes an extension of my hair, and then is rigged into this tree that is also like my family tree. So this piece I've worked on it several different times with my different like lines of ancestry. And so this one particularly is focused on that line, which is my grandfather. One interesting point about it, I find, is that his father died in World War I, and he had 9 brothers and sisters at the time, and he was 2. And so his mom gathered all, and this is in my audio thing as well. His mom gathered up all of the brothers and sisters and moved to BC, but she left him because he was in the terrible twos. And like, there was actually one younger than him, but it was just an infant, so easy to take care of. And so anyway, he was like the hardest one. So she left him where I grew up in Wagner, where my whole family's from. And it's just that interesting thing to me is like, okay, if she hadn't left him, then he would have been to BC and then wouldn't have met my grandmother, and like just all the inter things that have to happen for us to be alive and be made are interesting to me in this piece. So yeah, that's like a little bit of what it was inspired. I thought that I would use more of the audio interview, but through the process, I decided not to, but maybe in another process I would. That's a little bit about that. How is it feeling being attached to the, it hurts. It took training for sure. Yeah, it hurts. It totally hurts. Like I'm an aerialist, 18 years, like I'm into it hurts, but it was like a lot of pain in my neck. It totally hurts. Like I'm so an aerialist. That's the simple answer is how does it feel? It hurts. But it was like a lot of pain in my neck.
Well, that was the good answer. But yeah, what was it like to hang from it? But I can see how it would be painful. That's the answer too. But very,
it was fun too. It was fun.
Yeah, I was gonna say probably fun. A challenge for an aerialist, right? That with your experience, also to have that, there's tension and care when it comes with something so generally attached to your fragile spot, which is your head and your neck. So I can imagine that that's also, I guess that's why this question, because it's something so personal to speak about your ancestry and something so connected to your grandfather, and having his voice talking to you through the process while you have something so fragile also attached to what's holding on to you. Yeah, that's what was very interesting. Thank you. Okay. Now we have Dana. Dana Bates. It's a
you got it correct. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and thank you, Angola, also for mentioning. Yeah, for if anybody is visually impaired, I am a brown person, originally from Mexico. I have long hair in a big bun on top of my head, and really long, pretty earrings, I've been told. So thank you. Dana is a pre-professional static trapeze artist. Her aerial work is enriched by her experience as an established musician, trans woman, mother, and doctoral musicologist. Dana, could you describe a space that means something to you and why? And can you speak to the juxtaposition of the two versions of yourself that you depict in the film? Can you explain the importance or impact you want this film to have when people watch it?
Yeah, absolutely. So first I just want to say how fantastic it is to see a lot of familiar faces, names that I'm now putting a face to, both here in the call, and also I see sort of chiming in on Facebook, or sorry, I mean YouTube, don't sue me for that. It's great to see all these people here. Yeah, so I mean, the video that I contributed represents some of my experiences as a white trans woman who is moderately visible. I transitioned a few decades ago because I'm old, and I pass conditionally. So a lot of the work that I submitted here presents some of that experience. So, for me, I experience space quite a lot in terms of distance or proximity to other people. So a few people have already mentioned inside and outside, like Meryl and Kaylin have. And for me, that definitely plays into my thinking in this video that I submitted. So, historically, there's been this distinction between outdoor spaces or the public being where men conduct their business, and, they're free to go about moderately safely, right? And women are a little bit more relegated to indoor spaces, whether that's the home home or the school or what have you. But as a trans person, both of those contexts are places where I've experienced a lot of pushback and harassment, whether it's indoors or outdoors or from men or from women. So, partially for that reason, I think one of the places that resonates most with me is remote locations. So, geographically, that can mean deserts and remote islands that I really am drawn to, and I feel liberated there. And in the context of this piece here in Unusual Spaces, I've described my experience of transness as being socially remote, right? So kind of distant in many ways and removed. But, of course, we can't exist easily or for a long time, just isolated and on our own. So, for me, there's always this tension between going away and coming back. So for me, possibly the most meaningful spaces have been journey or traveling, because we're all in process, I guess. Yeah, so in terms of the content of the video that I submitted, Deanna is on the ball. She's right that there's two characters that you'll see in this video. And most of the aesthetics and content of the video that I produced, I drew from the song that I was working with. The song was composed by an electronic music producer and author, also another trans woman named Sophie. And so the refrain of the song that I used has two people in it. The refrain is, "I can make you feel better," right? So there's a first person I who's promising this perfection, this ideal. And then there's the you who doesn't yet feel great, needs to feel better, perhaps. So, when I looked at how to craft the aesthetics of the video, then to match the music, well, the first person who's singing in the song, the I who can make you feel better, who's all augmented digitally, she sounds perfect. Her voice has been treated and edited quite a bit digitally, so it sounds hyper-produced. It sounds unrealistic, unnatural. And so I created a character who likewise looks completely manufactured and flawless and, embodies that perfection to quite an extent. And then the you, who doesn't really feel great yet, has a grittier filmic treatment and is shadowier and so on. So that's the contrast that I worked with. So, in terms of this message of, feeling better, being better, self-improvement and so on, all of us, I think, navigate social expectations to some extent, whether those are standards of professionalism or beauty standards that circulate in the social circles around us. And we can participate in them or not, but, we have some choice. A point that I wanted to make is that for trans people, the criteria, the scrutiny that we're faced with is so much higher. There's this really high level of scrutiny, so of beauty standards and so on, looking perfect, looking correct. So a lot of you would know already that if I go to a lot of US states, if I step into any public bathroom, whether it's a men's or women's one, I can land up in jail right away, because those spaces are so highly contested. And, even here in Ontario where I live, if a parent transitions, they very frequently lose custody of their kids because their gender expression, their appearance is not correct. And even as recently as when I transitioned, the clothing that you wore to medical appointments, again, your appearance, was judged so harshly that if you wore jeans, let's say, to a medical appointment, you could be denied treatment. And that happened all the time. So the way we look has so much attention and plays so heavily in our own minds of looking correct and so on. So when I was thinking about how to portray this character who looks perfect and embodies that sort of manufactured plasticky appearance, there were two things that were kind of important to me. One is that I wanted to erase any sense of location for her. It was filmed just in a regular aerial studio here in downtown Toronto, but I digitally erased any sign of the location because I wanted this to be an anywhere or a nowhere. You know, a nowhere is literally a utopia, you know, so it can seem perfect and fantastic, but it's unrealistic and unattainable. So I wanted to erase any geographic location for this person because in a way they're a fantasy. The other thing that was important to me with that character was eliminating any signs of the process of manufacturing that image. Because one of the central needs of capitalism is that the items that we receive look perfect. The labor that goes into them is hidden, the origin of them is hidden. So our TVs just look perfect, our MacBooks look perfect, our fridges look like they just descended upon the earth. So I wanted this character also to not look like there was any labor involved, that she just looks perfect. And then, so finally, the way I tied those two characters together was through color. The color of the wig that was worn by the brighter character is copied into the general tint of the grittier character. So it's a little bit of tying together, almost like the dots in a yin and yang symbol. So those are some of my thoughts on space and how it played into my piece. So it's a little bit of tying together.
Thank you, Dana. Yes, actually, Natalie and I discussed how it was a journey of emotions when we watched your film. It was, as you were saying, it did seem like the yin and yang. There was so much of one in the other that even though it was so separate, you still know that there is a conversion. And that was that journey of emotions between feeling so, and the music is so pumped, right? It really catches you, but at the same time, you're having these emotions of sensitiveness for the person or the other person. You know, there's so much going on that it takes you in the journey. Yeah, and I just wanted to reiterate actually that even though I am the one just talking right now, some of these questions actually also came from Natalie, the awesome Natalie, that right now she's not able to talk because of our technical difficulties. We miss her right here, but so yeah, this is also part of her interest in your work. So it's not just me with these questions. I just wanted to remember that because she's still here with us.
And Natalie.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much, Dana. And we're moving towards, now we're gonna start our conversation with Patrick. Patrick Lemia. Would that be the pronunciation of your last name?
Yes.
Okay. So Patrick Lemieux, he is an artist, writer, and photographer based in Toronto. He's a publisher, author of both fiction and nonfiction. Patrick, could you describe a space that means something to you and why? And how does the story transform the chosen images? What is the impulse of the composition of your work?
Well, I thought similar to what some of the other artists were saying. I thought a lot about different spaces that are important to me, why they're important, and what some of the other artists were saying. What I came up with was what I'm doing now with my work, why they're important. Like when I'm working, when I'm focused and intense on different projects, I like to try and find a place sort of outside of where I work, like in my apartment, sort of where I can relax, where there's it's relatively peaceful, somewhere in the city. And each year, just sort of by happenstance, I try and find sort of different places. A few years ago, I was going out to Cherry Beach a lot, and, sometimes going for a swim, sometimes just sitting. Last year it was over by the lakeshore and was watching boats go by. This year, because of what's going on in the world and everything being shut down, I actually started spending a lot more time on my own balcony this year, because which I had spent time on a lot actually for years, but then this was sort of the first time it kind of became a place to sort of separate myself from my work, but still being sort of at my own home. And I learned to sort of appreciate it in a much different way. So while I'm out there, in these spaces, still think about the work, or I'll think, I'll try and not think about it. Like if I'm working on a book, I'll think about the characters, I'll think about the plot. If I'm working on a painting, I'll think about, the color and the light, things like that. And often I'll sit there and I'll make a playlist, or I'll make a playlist at home and take it with me. And each year, as part of the fun, is sort of finding sort of thematically songs that kind of fit what I'm thinking about, my mood. And then it's interesting kind of going back to some of them sometimes and listening to the old playlists that kind of fit, remembering, what I was thinking and what I was feeling at the time. And then it's interesting. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what where I end up going next year. What I was thinking, some place around the city that I can find that's peaceful, and I can kind of get out of my own head, or kind of look at what I'm working on kind of in a different way. And your second question was about the images and the story and how the two affect each other. Um, I'm reminded of something. I was watching an interview a while back, and an actress named Charlotte Stewart. You may not know her, but she's been in a number of David Lynch projects. She's in like Twin Peaks, and she was in Eraserhead. She was talking about David Lynch's filmmaker, sort of his process, and how she described it as sort of he makes movies sort of the way a painter creates. And being a painter myself, I got thinking, it's a really interesting sort of approach to storytelling, and also being a writer, and literally, you're telling my story, with words. So when I was assembling the exhibit that you'll see here, as part of Unusual Spaces, my piece is called City Space. It was basically, I tried to kind of take that idea of sort of the way I create, and the way I sort of think in terms of painting, and sometimes even when I'm writing, just sort of layering ideas and images, and not necessarily always having a straightforward narrative, but you'll see different things, sort of not connecting in different ways, if that makes sense. Like recurring images, and but of different spaces. Not to give too much away, because I also want the viewer to kind of come at this and see, but of different things themselves. Um, the photos are all around Toronto. I've lived here 25 years, and it was about 10 years ago or so that I bought my first digital SLR, and started exploring sort of that aspect of sort of visual storytelling. And I've sort of culled the photos that you'll see in the exhibit, from all of those years. So some are older, and it's interesting to see some of the changes. I was looking back when I was putting it together, and I was like, oh yeah, that building's not there anymore. In some cases, you'll see literally buildings, under construction, sometimes being, in the process of being torn down. In some cases, you'll see literally really small, intimate spaces, see big, vast, vistas. But you'll see some recurring sort of elements and details. Stairs are an interesting thing that I was sort of conscious of as I was taking pictures of them, but as I started going through, I was like, oh, okay, there's another stairwell, or there's a staircase, or something like that, or steps. Sometimes they're like right in the foreground, sometimes they're kind of off the stairwell. So, among many other things. So the idea was, there sometimes story elements that kind of weave, and if you watch it again, you'll pick up different things, among many other things. So the idea was, and then in terms of, the composition of the individual pieces, I basically, being an artist, and having that training, sometimes it's sort of instinctive, you see something and it's interesting and it catches your eye. So being an artist, you take a picture of it, and, then you do a little bit of editing and cropping, or something like that. I try and get it all in camera, though, in the moment. But, and, then you do a little bit of editing and cropping, it's an interesting sort of process. I tried to keep it, natural. Nothing's really staged in it. Like I didn't say, to anybody. Sometimes I waited a long time, but I didn't like have something specific happen, or set something up to happen and then take a picture of it. It was all like moments that were occurring around me or places that I found, and I'm still finding. Like there's, like I said, I've lived here 25 years. I've lived in this neighborhood occurring around me or places that I found 16, 17 years. And I didn't even realize there's like an actual functioning farm a couple of blocks away from me, right in the downtown core, the Riverdale Farm. I just found that this summer. And I was like walking around, even said to the staff, I'm like, how did I not know this was here? Right in the downtown core of the Riverdale Farm. I get that a lot. I just found that this
Wow.
summer. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
that's some of the the ideas, and I also want people to sort of bring their own thoughts and feelings too. Especially if you live in the city, you'll see some familiar landmarks and bring their own things like that. Sometimes you'll look at a piece and be like, how could this possibly be in the city? Landmarks and the
Yeah.
farm, something like that. So. Yeah, I hope that's a long rambling answer,
Yeah, no,
covers
yeah.
the question.
Yes, you did. And I did wanted to say that what you were talking about in the process of how you put yourself in the, I guess I'm talking from my perspective, but I can see the storytelling and the performance part of it because you're putting yourself in a situation when coming from another photography background, I also do enjoy photography, and I can see that you waited for the right moment for the light to hit a certain spot, for that to hit the lens, and that from the perspective of an audience, it tells you about time and it tells you about story and about what was going on around it, about the certain time of the day. So it already has a story weaved in the light and the space that you're creating. So that was why my question was about your storytelling, and it's good to hear from you about how you're speaking about the space you live in and your the patterns that you even see daily, and even the things that you don't see because you're seeing other things and the things that you're paying attention to. So thank you for sharing that with us, Patrick.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Moving into the work collaboration between Nadine and Diane. Okay, so Diane McGrath Locust is a Toronto-based conceptual aerial performance artist and choreographer, creating performance art in the air. Owner of Fly With Me Aerial Dance Studio, Diane has been performing in various troupes as an aerialist over 17 years. Nadine Arpin is a two-spirit Red River Mischief filmmaker, filmmaker, media artist living in Sioux. Look out.
Sulika.
I don't want to slaughter all the words, I'm sorry. Northwestern Ontario. Nadine is interested in telling stories that blur the lines of legend, memory, and truth. Can both of you share with us a space that means something to you and why? And also, where did the idea to make this piece originate from? And what inspired you to both make this piece together? Can you speak to the choice of color, shades, or lack thereof that you use to reflect the shifts in your piece?
Sure. I guess I'll start, Diane, if you don't mind. To begin, favorite spaces. It's a question that I was thinking about as everyone was answering, and frankly, it's not so much the space as much I feel is it's your company, depending on who you're with. So often, I find my favorite space is when I'm with people I love, whether it be my family or friends or. So it's hard for me to pinpoint a specific physical space. So it's more maybe it's an emotional space that it would be my favorite. So that sense of camaraderie or being with people that you love. So that being said, I was wondering if Diane wanted to talk more about the concept first, and then I could come back to the color if that's all right. Like why we incorporated color. Would that work for you? Go ahead, Diane.
Sure. So my special place or favorite place, I guess, normally or usually it would have been in nature.
and I love storms. So storms have always, it's the energy you get from storms. I just love it. But recently I've been hanging out a lot in my garage. So that has become my special place. It's just where I do all my work now. I have a rig in my backyard, and this is my garage. So yeah, it's my creative place. So the question was, where did the piece originate? So I, during the pandemic, I started doing little clips of me in the air, from different angles and different speeds, and I would post them on social media. Why am I nervous? I'm very nervous. Basically, they were pieces that were reacting to what was going on during the pandemic at different times. And I noticed that my friend Nadine was doing slow motion clips as well and posting them, that I found really interesting. And I thought it would be great to combine the two of us together and see how I could be in her space and she, so we can figure out how we can do something together.
Yeah. So is that, do you want me to kick in, Diane? Yeah. So I mean, when Diane brought the idea to me, and she sort of had suggested that we bring these two clips, these two specific, like her aerial work, and this, like, for me, we were definitely having very different experiences that summer. It was a summer of us, like what struck me was the idea that we were in two separate spaces. We are going through something with more or less in the same time frame, but having very different responses to it. My particular footage is just one clip of very low lying, slow motion pan through wild grass and field in a sort of a bush environment, like in basically my backyard. But it was shot right after a night of a very heavy lightning and thunder storm. So there was that very heavy sensation in the air, as Diane was saying, that it's that energy that's in the air it just sort of lingers. And like for me, I was sort of in a place where I was feeling a little sorrowful, almost like melancholy, and I felt like I was ruminating within an experience. So my piece is kind of like cycling through the same images, and then it was the idea of merging, like that we are two individual people, but somehow our lives in the world, we inevitably merge together, that our lives are individual, but at the same time we are all connected. And so there was something that was kind of magical that would happen when the images would collide. And so in a way for me to incorporate my culture and try to bring some indigenous teachings into the film, I wanted to use the universal image of the medicine wheel, which is a very old teaching tool that's been in North America for thousands of years. And depending on the nation and the tribe, the meanings are different depending on the stories and with the beliefs. So in our context, we decided to take like heritage languages. So both my background is Michif. Diane has our Irish background. So we incorporated words that were reflective of how we were feeling at the time. So again, with the colors, like the colors represent the four seasons, the four directions, the four states of being. So you have yellow, which is more emotional, and red is dealing with your mental capacities and you're dealing with the mental struggles. Black tends to be physical and understanding the body and issues with the body. And then you have the white, which is spiritual. So, and again, looking at the directions, the color, the emotions. So it's kind of like in a universal way to sort of like show that we're in this cyclical pattern, that we're constantly revolving, we're growing, we change, things pass away, we move into the spirit, and then we come back again. So there's always that renewal and completion. So a lot of the film was about just kind of merging those two ideas together, trying to bring our culture together in a visual and very slow slow sense. So I mean, sounds. I would say it sounds so complicated for a 3-minute film, but you know, it actually went through an immense process as Diane and I were developing it in the editing, which was like a summer, and it was a very tight, you know, turnaround time for this project. So yeah, that.
Yeah, you can definitely see the amount of work that went into the project. I mean, I'm not a I've done some video editing, but for sure, Nadine, the work that you've done in bringing both imagery together, as well as the words, and Diane's works with the perspective and the colors, it does speak of a lot of the work that you're speaking about. And I'm actually really glad to hear even more about it, what you're talking about with the medicine wheel, because I was curious about I mean, it in the question, but I was very curious about the colors and if that meant anything, which is now very much explained. And thank you very much. Yeah, I enjoy it. In the question, but I was very anything else you guys want to say, or I guess I don't know if I cut you off or I just got excited. Thank you very much. Yeah,
No, we're good.
I enjoy it. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you again for being here. Okay. We have now MC Cruz. MC Cruz, you were having difficulty with your internet, but we see you. Can you hear us? Can you think we can hear you? We have now MC Cruz. Yeah. Okay. You're still on mute. Having difficulty with your internet, but we see you. Can you hear us? Can you think we can hear you? We have now MC Cruz. Yeah. Okay. You're still on mute. Having difficulty with your internet, but we. I'll go and I'll introduce you, and then we can see we can hear you. MC Cruz, aka Chris, is a child of Chilean immigrants. Their goal is to keep on creating art that challenges the status quo and telling stories with meaning and passion. MC Cruz, could you describe a space that means something to you and why? And what inspires your ideas? Can you speak about your process and where do you see this work moving forward?
Okay. Okay, so I will start with the question about the space that is important to me. And for me, this space is an actual country. It's Morocco. I've been there 4 times already. And I just came back just 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I came back from Morocco. So it's a place that I keep coming to. And every time I go, I feel more connected to it. It's a place that I discovered that I have ancestors from. And even in more recent family history, we have connections of family that lived there in Tangier and in Casablanca. I have one of my ancestors who was an artist as well, and he painted like this. And if you go to the southern Spain and Morocco, you might see his work. So it's I feel like I found the space for me, and I can describe Tangier is a city that is enchanting. It's exciting. It's enthralling. There's so much energy. There's so many people. There's so many buildings, so many things to see. There are ancient buildings that are hundreds, if not thousands of years old, and you have a modern day condo or a mall, and everything is together right by the Mediterranean Sea. An amazing place for me, and I feel inspired whenever I pass by the old houses that you see. I imagine the history of my family and the history of all the people of that place, of that city, of that country. So it's for me, it's a place to get energized and to get inspired. And uh, honestly, I'm thinking of moving there. So it's that much. It means that much to me. And the Sahara Desert and the beaches, which are the natural spaces, are also inspiring. The the desert is so silent. You can hear your heartbeat and nothing else. For me, it's the place to go and to get ideas. You can dream, you can think, you can meditate, and for me, it's the best place to get an idea, to develop it in silence. And the beauty of the place, for me, it's incredible. I love that natural beauty. I love the golden dunes. I love the sea when I'm by the beach. All of that is what is, it's tremendously inspiring for me. For me, it's just the natural space and the history. That is always going to be something that I am just irresistibly attracted to. And since I have that connection with it, it also makes sense. For me, it makes sense. So the question about the process. Um, so I honestly don't speak much about process or think much about it. I just create. I just paint when I feel like painting, or draw when I feel like drawing, or write when I feel like writing. Like it's it's pretty just like what I naturally feel like in the moment of doing. If I feel like doing nothing, I will do nothing. But if I feel like painting, I will paint. It's just something that emerges from my soul, from my mind, from when I dream, when I have dreams and ideas, images come to me. So that's when I get the paper and pen and I get the paints. That's what I do. It's just what I do. It's just something that comes naturally, and it's like breathing. If I know how to breathe, but I don't think about it. So it's the same thing. For me, art is the same thing. I just naturally do it. And try not to think about it too much. It's like if an idea comes to me in a dream, I accept it and I'll put it out there. And if people understand, great. And if people don't understand, that's how I work. That's pretty much my process. And so yeah, where do I see this going forward? Well, I am doing this work to record this moment in time, which is fairly unusual. And so it's just something I need to do right now. All those images and ideas I'm getting from this pandemic, from the quarantine. I had to do a quarantine in the Sahara Desert, and then I had to do a quarantine in Canada. So it's something so unpredictable that I think almost no one expected this. So I'm getting a lot of ideas from this, and I think it's important to keep a record. To just this is a very unique situation, so why not do something to remember this? And I hope that it will end and then I will move on to something else. But I am gonna keep with the themes of space and with, especially with refugees, with migration, because it affects me personally on a personal level. My father came here from Chile in the late 70s. If you know anything about Chile, you know that there was a brutal dictatorship in the 70s launched by the CIA, the United States of America, and the Chilean right wing. So obviously people had to come to Canada and escape torture and so I understand what it is to be a refugee, to be a migrant, that you have to leave a place, you have to go. And I'm just going to keep doing paintings and writing and drawing about that issue until I see that there's some justice being done, that until I see that refugees are being treated in a somewhat a fair way, which is not happening anytime soon, I can see. So I'm just going to have to keep speaking out about this and keep drawing and keep painting and keep writing about those issues. So that's how I feel about it. That's a promise that I made to myself, that I'm just going to keep doing that type of work, along with doing work in other things that I'm interested in. But I'm also going to keep doing this the issues of migration and refugees and spaces. I'm going to keep doing that along with anything else that I'm doing. I'm also going to keep doing this.
Thank you, MC Cruz. Yes, actually, we were in conversations with you through email while you were in transition from Morocco to here, and Yeah, it was a journey even for us to be part of those quarantines with you in a way. And I do believe that your artwork does reflect part of what's going on too, both visually as well as the recording of your sound. So yeah, I am excited to hear more about it. This has been good. Thank you so much. Okay, we have Nicole Negro and Corey Neal. Nicole is not able to be here in person, so we have a recording of her conversation, well, her response to our questions. Nicole Negro is a dance theater artist. Her performative work interlaces her interest in behavior, sensory perception, language, and connection. Negro creates movement investigations, which are a synthesis of her studies in dance, voice, improvisation, and physical theater. Corey Neal is an architect, visual artist, and sound designer from Philadelphia, PA. He is a native Philadelphian and graduate of Temple University School of Architecture. So Nicole is going to describe to us a space that means something to her and why. And their piece has an intimate closeness to the skin. They're going to speak about that and the choice to get close to the skin as a texture. Did you learn anything new about human skin and or the body in the process of making this piece?
During the initial months of the pandemic and the first lockdown, I was very fortunate to spend time with access to a studio, a very large space with a beautiful wooden floor, kind of the color of sand, and very large windows that looked out kind of on the rest of the property, which is covered in different materials like bricks and cement blocks and wood, and kind of almost looks like a construction zone. But if you look a bit further, there's a large cornfield and a lot of trees with birds that I could watch. And the ceiling is pointed, so from the inside it's this very, very high ceiling with these slated kind of planks of wood and a lot of space. So in this time of lack of space, where space becomes so incredibly prevalent, whether it's the space between us or if we're keeping the right amount of space, the proper safe amount of space, or the limited space we have in our small apartments, or the luxury and privilege of large amounts of space. So this studio, which is also the windows that I looked out of a lot and that you see in the film that we made, it holds some significance to me because I spent a lot of time recognizing how privileged I was to have that space and to be able to move, and also thinking of the people that I couldn't see as I stared out of those windows. So it's almost like an empty space where a lot of the people that I love have never actually been physically, but somehow I carried them with me in my thought and in my movement and over the time that I was there. I think I came to skin because I've been thinking so much about touch and the necessity of touch in my life, and how this touch has been ripped away from us during these months of the pandemic, and understandably so, in an effort to keep us safe, but with what kind of repercussions is something I've been thinking about, whether it's platonic touch or romantic touch or physical feedback between dancers in the studio together, or a student-teacher relationship, and just this feeling of someone else's skin on my skin, and how important that is, and how much I believe in this need for touch and intimacy in our collective well-being, for our healing, for our understanding of each other, for our ability to connect. And so knowing that we don't have that, I've been thinking about skin and my friend's skin, and so in a way I think the body became a canvas, sort of, to speak of this collective experience of our inability to touch as we once did. And the skin for me is at once porous and a protector. It's at once a wall and something that we connect through. And so it was this strange sort of fabric between us and the world and each other, our skin, that was usually a force of connection, a place where we found connection with each other. But in this instance, it became almost a disconnecting space, one we're not allowed to touch or share. And so I asked the collaborators to choose parts of their body, parts of their skin to film and expose. And yeah, as I look at these images and the stills from the video, I'm quite moved.
Okay, we're good. All right, let me know if we have feedback, Jake, and if we're all good. You're my technician, and we'll see. All right. Okay. Well, are we all good? Okay, I think we figured out the issue. It took, I don't know, an hour and 30 minutes, but we figured it out. Dan, you can go ahead with the initiatives question if you'd like to.
Yes. Hi. So Natalie is here with us now. That's awesome.
What just happened?
But we're gonna start with initiatives. We wanted to take the time to reach out to all of you and ask you if there are any other initiatives that you know of or are a part of that you would like us to share with the broader community. So you could just take this time, just maybe for feedback and because of the sound and the technical difficulties, maybe just like put your hand up and then unmute, and we can just start that way. If you have any initiatives you want to share with the broader audience. Yep, Angola.
Well, myself and Deanna and anybody else here, not this weekend, are in the SOS at Circus Fix, one of their fundraisers to save their studio. It's happening this weekend. You go, it's all on Facebook. How do you find it? The Circus Fix, you email, go to the Circus Fix. Yeah.
Yeah, Circus Fix website, yeah.
Yeah, or Facebook if you can, or then we'll be there. Yeah.
Anybody else? Any publishing thoughts? Diane, yeah?
I'm not sure if the past weekend was the sometimes International Circus Festival that's still up. So I think there's tons of stuff still up there if anybody's interested in seeing some really awesome stuff.
Amazing. Thank you, Diane. MC Cruz, you have some initiatives?
Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, so yeah, I'm working on a graphic novel that I'm just gonna self-publish it, so I just want to shout out and just point that out. So you can follow me on Instagram at Aisha Amshish, and I'll put more news about that. And also, I'm working on a documentary about Chile, about the political and social situation, because it exploded literally last year. So if you're interested in that, I'm also working on that documentary about Chile. I already did interviews with people over there, with artists from Chile who are involved in that movement. So just be on the lookout for that. And also, yeah, I'm just going to be working on that for a while with editors, hopefully. So if you're interested. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, MC Cruz.
Are there any other thoughts from anybody? Oh, Angola?
Angola?
If no one else has any, I do have one more that's happening later in the month called Planet Fabulon, and it is like a mix of video game, rave, choose your own adventure, virtual party. Planet Fabulon should be fun as well.
Amazing. Yes, thank you. Diane. You have another one, Diane? You were lifting your hand? Yes.
You just have to unmute. It should be on the bottom left corner if you scroll down to your screen. There you go. Sorry, it was like popping up and down and I couldn't grab it at the right time. I'm just, because of the call for artists for unusual spaces, I was kind of working on some paintings of artists in strange places. So I'm doing a bunch of paintings. So in the future, there'll be a series of paintings. I've done 2 or 3 so far. So I will keep it posted about that, but it's been fun doing that. And Nadine's got some interesting things she's working on.
Thank you. Yes. Can we send you photos, Diane? So like maybe like sneak some. Okay, great.
Are we just talking about projects that
And
we're working on?
Nadine, yes. Initiatives of that you even know of, like if there's anything in other circles that you work with that we should know about, that we should be aware of, and yeah, share them with.
I would like to say, coming from Northwestern Ontario, which is, Sulakaut is a community of 5,000 people. We don't have the opportunity to network with Southern Ontario, and I would like to see more collaborations. So perhaps there is no initiatives, but I would like to see a little bit more exchanges. It would be wonderful to have people come and to bring some of your skills and your performance skills, and even this kind of installation art party live event is a very exciting and is not something that would happen necessarily in this space. So even though there are no initiatives, I am open to any collaborations, or if people want to talk about doing stuff together, that would be terrific.
Definitely. That sounds like a very good initiative to me, starting with you. Yes. Okay. So I guess maybe we're good. Natalie, did you want to say something now that you're able to?
Sure. Hello. I was like silent the whole time. I wanted to not cause any more feedback issues. We figured out the problem, but anyway, it took us a long time. Well, thank you for bearing with us on the issue. If you guys want to share in the Hercinia chat, you guys can share any links of those initiatives you brought up. I know that Emily shared the one for Circus Fix from the one that Angola mentioned. So feel free to throw that in now so people can see it. Totally fine. So feel free to do that while I'm talking, because I'm just going to be like blah, blah. But you should pay attention, of course. So we're going to be basically just announcing the launch of the site now. So we have now officially launched Unusual Spaces, a virtual art party. We invite you to go check out the online gallery, which will be available until October 15th. Very exciting. First time doing this. As you can tell with our live stream, we're so professional, figuring it all out. We're trying our very best. So COVID has brought us new challenges, and we're working hard to face them and bring art to the world in a different way. So that's what we're doing. So the link will be in the description box below. I will share it just after this finishes. I'll post it. It's also going to be on our Facebook wall, as well as just going to our website. Our website will have it there. You'll be able to find it if you just go to www.herciniaarts.com, herciniaarts.com, and then you'll find it there. We also have Instagram and Facebook. You can follow us there and get the links as well. And we'll be posting this. We've already been posting already, so you'll see it pop up. We also sent out a newsletter. If you're not part of our newsletter, you can always join on to that as well to keep up with our projects and what we're working on. So yeah, so there's two sections to the gallery. There's a visual showcase where you can click on the artist or scroll through the gallery of the 10 artists. Or the groups that they're part of, and you can see all their pieces as well as the audio. And then there's also a radio audio portion which you can listen to, which is really amazing. And Emily Hughes, co-founder of Hercinia, actually put it together, which was amazing, and she put all the audios together, and it's absolutely amazing. So it was really great to listen to. I really enjoyed that. So it's just really great to have different ways to listen to or to watch the art in different ways. It's really great. Yeah, we just want to thank the Canada Council for the Arts for funding this project. Absolutely amazing that we were able to do this, and we're so happy to have all of you artists as part of this art party that we're putting together, and that is now online for the world to see. We want to thank Diana Lopez Soto. Thank you so much for being an amazing curator with me. It was like a joy to work with you, and amazing to watch all these pieces with you and talk about all of the art that we got to see. It was amazing. A special thank you to co-founder of Hercinia Arts Collective, Emily Hughes. I want to thank her for her vision and for creating the visual website and compiling and creating all the audio for all of this. She did all of the work online, and it's like stunning, and I'm just so proud of her, and I just am so thankful that she's my colleague that I get to work with every day. I'm gonna like tear up, but it's okay. Also, I want to thank George Parkinson and Jacob Duplay, who helped me with some of the streaming. Even though it didn't work out perfectly, they still helped me a lot yesterday and today trying to figure it out and navigating it, and they will continue to help me, so it's really great. And then I want to thank Nadine, Kirsten, Evan, Sandra, Celeste, Jessie, Vanita, Emily, and Calvin for lending their voices for the audio portion of the gallery. So that was awesome, and they're thanked in the audio as well, but I just want to say it on the stream too because they were awesome and helped us out. So yeah, I just want to do a final cheers. If you have a cup of something, or if you have a paper clip or like a marker or something, you can like tap the screen. I have wine that I've been sipping on as I go because let's just do a cheers. So thank you, everyone.
Cheers.
I'll make a sound.
I think we can be noisy now. Come on.
Yeah, we can be noisy.
Noisy.
Yeah. It's awesome. Just go check out the gallery, guys. Share it. Enjoy. Have a great evening. Enjoying the gallery until the 15th. It's up for about 15 days. Woo!
We did it. Amazing to talk to all of you. Thank you so much for your time. Part of it was also because we believe that this is what we need, connection, and we don't want you to just have an opening and then be gone. And I just hope that after we turn this off, we can still feel the connection. So that's all that we also wanted to happen. So remember these conversations and all these opportunities and these initiatives so that we can continue.
And feel free to share anything in the Facebook group we have as well for Unusual Spaces. As this goes for 15 days, feel free to start discussions or chat with each other or, tag each other. I know not everyone's on Facebook, but, we can try to at least have some conversations. Or you can start talking underneath in the Instagram posts and you can chat some stuff there. Just feel free to have a little bit of fun, open forum on the Facebook group. All right, guys. Take care. Thank you so much for your time and for your beautiful works of art.
Thank you for putting all this together.
Thank you. Nice meeting everybody.
All right. Take care, everybody. And enjoy.
Take care. Bye.